please the court, counsel, members of the jury. Where was Casey Maxwell? I'm going to answer that question for you because they didn't. Casey Maxwell was standing on her boat, holding her gun, alone, murdering Jacob Bennett. They want you to believe that Jacob Bennett was murdered at a meeting scheduled by Casey Maxwell, but it was Jackie Owens? They want you to believe that this murder was committed on Casey Maxwell's boat, but it was Jackie Owens? They want you to believe that this murder occurred with Casey Maxwell's gun, but it was Jackie Owens? Members of the jury, that just simply doesn't make sense. And the more they try to make the evidence point at Jackie Owens, the more it just points back at Casey Maxwell. Now, the burden in today's case rests on this table, and this table alone. We had no burden. Didn't have to call a single witness, didn't have to ask a single question. And I remind you of that because there were times in today's trial where it seemed that the prosecution shifted their burden onto the defense. I invite you to recall the cross-examination of Alex Grace, where they tried to imply that Mr. Grace was lying about having dinner with Ms. Owens on June 16, 2008. But members of the jury, it is simply not good enough for the state to call Mr. Grace's testimony into question. Implications are just not good enough. It was their burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Jackie Owens committed this murder. Now, opposing counsel spent a long time of his closing talking about this wiretap. It was the second point that he told you he would speak to you about. And this is another example of them not meeting their burden. He told you that this wiretap conversation proved that Casey Maxwell and Jackie Owens were acting in complicity. But members of the jury, remember the contents of that wiretap conversation. We have one statement from Jackie Owens saying not to have the conversation. At no point was Jacob Bennett mentioned. At no point was a murder mentioned. Members of the jury, that's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Jackie Owens and Casey Maxwell acted in complicity. Now, I want to talk to you about three problems with the prosecution's case to demonstrate how they have failed to meet their burden. First, the absolute lack of physical evidence. Now, Detective Lee told you that there's a CSI effect, that we all expect to hear about DNA evidence, and we all expect to hear about this physical evidence all over the place. But members of the jury, there wasn't physical evidence anywhere that linked Jackie Owens herself to this crime. I want you to think about how they told you that this crime occurred. They painted this picture for you. They told you that it started on a boat, the body was transported, it was buried, and then the car was bleached. Members of the jury, I want you to think about how that story took place, and I want you to think about whether or not we have proof beyond a reasonable doubt of each of those stages happening as they told you. And if at each of those stages, Jackie Owens even needed to be involved. Because we didn't hear that Jackie Owens' hair or clothing fibers or DNA of any kind was to be found on the boat when this body was supposedly being transported and when this body was supposedly being buried. Not a single piece of evidence linking Jackie Owens to any of these locations. So let's talk about the physical evidence they tried to present you with. They presented you with a fingerprint. Detective Lee told you that he found a fingerprint on Casey Maxwell's boat linked to Jackie Owens. Members of the jury, Casey Maxwell and Jackie Owens work together on a daily basis. It isn't surprising. It's not incriminating. It's not even that interesting that Jackie Owens' fingerprint was found on the handrail to her business partner's boat. And as he told you, fingerprints don't have timestamps, members of the jury. There is simply no way for us to know when, why, or how that fingerprint was placed there. That's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, they also tried to present you with some bleach. They told you that Jackie Owens' car was bleached, and this bleach matched the bleach from the Hepburn Casey Maxwell's boat. Remember that Detective Lee told you that's a popular brand of bleach, members of the jury. It's called OxyBleach. It's available commercially on television. Anyone with a telephone and a credit card can purchase OxyBleach. So where does the bleach in Jackie Owen's trunk link her to, members of the jury? Well, it links her to every tile floor and kitchen and bathroom anywhere in America. It does not conclusively link her to Casey Maxwell's boat. That is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, the last piece of evidence they tried to present you with was this mud. Now, we heard from two experts about mud today. We heard from Detective Lee and Dr. Charney. One was a forensic geologist, and one wasn't. Dr. Charney told you after her analysis of those two soil samples, Owen's car and the burial site, she could not conclusively link the mud from Ms. Owen's car to the burial site. And both experts agreed, members of the jury, that that mud could have come from numerous places in Midlands. They told you it could have come from a golf course. It could have come from a baseball field. And the very first place that Detective Lee looked was a baseball field. Members of the jury, that is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So now let's talk about the reason that Jackie Owen supposedly had to kill Jacob Bennett. Now, they spent a long time talking to you about financial motive, members of the jury. But we simply did not get evidence linking this financial motive to this crime. They told you that Jackie Owens was in debt. Sure, she had a gambling debt, but there's a difference between a debt that can be paid and a debt that can't. And I asked Detective Finch, did she ever tell you that she couldn't pay that debt off? No. Did you look into her bank accounts to see if she had enough money to pay that debt off? No. Members of the jury, maybe she wanted to accept a buyout deal, but at no point did we hear she needed to accept that deal so badly that she had to kill Jacob Bennett to do it. That is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt of Jackie Owen's intent. Which brings me to the last problem with the state's case, and that is the astounding amount of evidence pointing to Casey Maxwell alone. Think about their story, members of the jury, and think about whether Jackie Owens even needed to be there for that crime to occur as they told you it did. Did Jackie Owens need to be there for Jacob Bennett to be shot with Casey Maxwell's gun? Did Jackie Owens need to be there for Jacob Bennett to be shot on Casey Maxwell's boat? Did Jackie Owens need to be there for Casey Maxwell to schedule that meeting for Jacob Bennett to meet her at her own boat? Members of the jury, we didn't hear explanations to any of these questions. We didn't hear where Casey Maxwell was on June 16, 2008. We didn't hear how Jackie Owens got access to Casey Maxwell's boat or access to her gun. Members of the jury, there is so much evidence against Casey Maxwell and simply no evidence linking Jackie Owens herself to this crime. So where is Casey Maxwell? Where was Casey Maxwell? And the answer to that question is still missing. It's missing along with Casey Maxwell's alibi. It's missing along with the murder weapon. It's missing along with any physical evidence pointing to Jackie Owens. The only thing that is not missing in the prosecution's case today, reasonable doubt. If you think it's reasonable that Casey Maxwell committed this crime alone, if you think it's possible she stood on her boat holding her gun by herself, then you can't find Jackie Owens guilty. Thank you very much.